And welcome to the brand new TLC studios. I'm here with my lovely compañera,
Compañero, ¿cómo
Andrea
está?
Gomez. Compañera.
Orlando Sanchez, we're so happy today. We have our TLC live as every Wednesday in our new studio starting from today.
It's
This
pretty
is such
cool.
exciting moment. And I just noticed that you just got a haircut just for the studio.
Well, everything's new. It's an inaugural broadcast from our brand new studios out here in beautiful West Houston. And, we thank you for those of you that have been putting up with our less than adequate technology for the last year. We thought that we ramp things up a little bit so that you guys would have a quality program. So we're really excited to be here with you. We've got a great program today. We've got a couple of candidates for the Texas House of Representatives. And as you know, Texas Latino Conservatives has two organizations. It's the TLC PAC, the Texas Latino Conservatives Political Action Committee, and we actually get involved in political races in Texas. We contribute to candidates. We do mail for them. We do live phone calling for them. We do block walking for them. We do digital advertising for them. We try to keep our state representatives that are conservative in Austin, Texas. But we also have an educational division. We are a 501c4 nonprofit organization that engages in educating our Latino community. We want to increase participation by Latinos in Texas. We want to give them a voice in the Texas House of Representatives, in the governor's office, in the attorney general's office, in the land commissioner's office, in the agriculture commissioner's office. We want to engage in training young Latinos, which are going to be the future conservative leaders of the state of Texas. Andrea, siempre lo he dicho y lo voy a repetir, that the Hispanic community, the Latinos in Texas, and particularly the Tejanos in South Texas are going to keep Texas red.
Definitely. If you want to know everything about us, Orlando mentioned, just go to TexasLatinoConservatives.com, TexasLatinoConservatives.com. You can learn more about the organization. You can learn more about the Leadership Latino. And also you can be part of our family just becoming a member, because this is important. We've been growing. We're not only being growing in technology, getting better technology. I don't say that we had bad technology. I said that we were organic.
Are we like fine wine? We get better with age.
Of course.
All right. Speaking of better, let's jump right in because we have some candidates that are very busy, and they're in the middle of a very busy campaign season, which, as you know, you have until Tuesday to vote. So let's introduce our wonderful state representative, Dr. Lynn Stucky. I hope that he got off of his phone call. He was on the phone. Lynn is on the very important Appropriations Committee in the state of Texas. That's probably one of the most powerful committees in the state of Texas, because appropriations means that all the tax dollars you pay, that committee makes recommendations to the full House for how the money is spent in the state of Texas. He was elected in 2016, and he's asking you for an opportunity to return to a third term in the Texas House of Representatives. So, Dr. Stucky, if you're with us, welcome.
Okay. Can you hear me?
We hear you fine. Go ahead.
Doctor, good
Okay, great.
morning.
Thank
How
you.
are you?
Good morning. I'm a little cold. Are you cold where you are
Oh,
in Houston?
yeah.
We were just
Yeah,
talking
we're
about that this morning, Dr. Stucky, that, the big buzz down here and all the TV stations, the anchors get giddy with the the weathercaster, because it's below 40 degrees in Texas.
Well, this is a breaking news for us, for sure.
Yeah. Well, they just northwest of us, there's a lot of ice issues. Unfortunately for us, we didn't get the ice, but it's very cold here right now. But I thank you for allowing me to join you guys, and I thank you for providing a platform for the conservative Latinos here in Texas. To give you a little bit of history about myself, I grew up on a farm ranch in Kansas. One of the reasons I'm in Texas today is I did not like that cold weather. I grew up on a farm ranch. My mother and father raised 6 of us, but my father passed away at the age of 11 of a brain tumor. So my mother raised us from that point on, and made sure she told us that her life was the 6 of us kids. And as a farmer rancher, that she was going to provide enough to make sure that we got through high school and were able to go to college, and made sure that all of us got a college degree, which we all did. I worked myself through 2 degrees at Kansas State University, and the second one being a veterinarian. But I knew when I graduated, I didn't want to go back to the central Kansas plains and provide veterinary care for both small and large animal. I wanted to go where it was warmer. So spring break of 1983, I got in my car and drove to Texas. And I didn't know anybody in Texas, but I stopped in Denton and then continued south, went through Austin and San Antonio and Houston and over to College Station, where I knew how to take my state boards, and drove back through Tyler, the rose capital of Texas, went back to Kansas State, finished up my last 5 weeks of school, and then drove to Denton. And I've lived here ever since. My wife I met at Kansas State. She also was a farm girl. Unfortunately, she had Hodgkin's lymphoma and had to drop out. And so she finished her last degree after I had graduated and then came down and joined me. We got married. And so we've lived in Denton, Texas, the Denton area since 1983. And I've been a veterinarian here in the community for 37 plus years. My wife was a public educator for many years, and then out of default, after we had children, became the office manager. So let me turn off my phone right now. So anyway, my first run was not really for the Texas House. It was to run for a lot of local elections. I was on the Chamber of Commerce. I was on the Animal Advisory Board, and then I was on the Bond Election Committee for Public Schools, and then I became a school board member for 15 years, with the last 4 years as president in a local school district here in North Denton County. And it taught me a lot because, our really, to me, the most precious asset we have is our children, and making sure that all of them have the opportunity to have a quality education. Because just like with me, there was no other option. If I didn't have a quality public education, I wouldn't be here today. And so I want to make sure that every child has that opportunity. As far as important issues in the district and the campaign, healthcare has become a top priority with the coronavirus. The winter flu coming, we're concerned about, multi-infections causing issues, no different than in veterinary medicine, where I deal with the coronavirus in many species. I've spent a lot of time given coronavirus in different animals, horses, cattle, dogs, cats. The feline infectious peritonitis is a coronavirus. And some of them are similar to what happens in humans with this COVID-19. One of my goals in the next session is to fix the pandemic response protocols that we need, because we need now and we need in the future. I don't know if you had specific questions you wanted to ask me, or if you want me to just keep talking, but I can do either one.
No, the program is an interchange of it's a conversation, and we try to ask questions certainly that many Texans are interested in. One of the questions I have, of course, is healthcare is a big issue. As you know, Dr. Stucky, we're broadcasting out of Houston, Texas, which is one of the largest medical centers in the United States. And the cost of healthcare, the access to healthcare, is problematic in Harris County. I will tell you that one of the issues that I've been paying particular attention to is childhood diabetes, particularly type 2 childhood diabetes. And if you take the east side of Houston, I don't know if you're familiar with Houston, but Houston is cut north and south by Interstate 10, right? And if you go out east on Interstate 10, there's a high concentration of Hispanic families out there. And the incidence, the prevalence of type 2 diabetes is pretty high. But yet there's very little access to pediatric endocrinologists out on the east side of town. So accessibility to health care to do the preventive stuff, which if we address early on will save us billions of dollars at the back end. But our concern is the lack of competition. I remember, Dr. Stucky, I am an immigrant. I came to Houston in 1962 from a communist country in Havana, Cuba. And back in those days, doctors would provide a service, and, even in the 50s and 40s, you would trade a bushel of collard greens or a couple chickens or a couple dozen eggs for the services. Nowadays, You don't know what the doctor's charging because it's the issue is between the hospital and the insurance company. They're the ones that making all the decisions, both medical and financial. So what are we going to do in Texas to bring back competition and let's start calling doctors again rather than providers?
Well, great questions. And the diabetes issue, we see that in animals also. There's many factors, including obesity, that are tied to those. But and as you stated, prevention is worth an ounce of prevention is worth more than a pound of cure. We need to get these people before they become diabetic, and if they have lifelong diabetes because of genetics, and we need to help them control that so that we reduce the chance of kidney failure and heart conditions, etc. And I'm going to go back to what I said earlier about my wife. My wife developed Hodgkin's lymphoma in college and had to drop out of college and had a couple of tumors removed, and then her spleen and a bunch of other lymph nodes. And so we've dealt with healthcare all her life. Later on in life, because of the extensive radiation that she had to endure, it caused a massive heart attack and 3 strokes that she had. A fourth was kind of a mini stroke, but and I'd tease her, I'd call her my cat with 9 lives because she's doing well today. But our healthcare costs have gone through the roof, and the ability to find providers has become very difficult. And you talk about between the insurance company and a lot of the money no longer is going from the person with the insurance to the doctor. It's getting caught somewhere in the middle, and we don't have the competitiveness that we need to provide quality care. No different than in veterinary medicine. If I was the only veterinarian in Denton, I'd probably be more like the driver's license office. And if your driver's license office is like mine, their attitude toward the people that come in there is not as good as it should be. And we need to work on that also. But if you have competition, you're going to provide better care and hopefully get the patient taken care of in a less costly way and in a better way for them. So there's a lot of discussions going on where we need to go with healthcare and a lot of it starts at the federal level. Is Obamacare completely scrapped and we start over? That's appears to be where a lot of people say we need to go in order to get back to where we are providing better care for more people at less cost.
Doctor, so House District 64, for people that are watching us right now and they're wondering what areas cover 64 and why you decide to run for that position, and also talk about education that, this year with the pandemic and with the quarantine, and we're putting our kids online. Some are still online. Some of them already went, they're already full time of school, but they're still having issues in education. So put us in a perspective, what is House District 64, and also talk about education.
Okay. District 64 is, there's 4 representatives in Denton County. We're approaching 1 million people in Denton County. And my District 64 is all of Denton proper. We go south to the Lake Dallas Bridge, which on the south side is Louisville. On the north side where I am is Lake Dallas. And then we have Corinth. And we go through Denton and north up to the Cook County line. And have most of that area. So I have some rural area and some very concentrated area. As far as public education right now, I recently had a meeting right here at my office with all of my superintendents. So I've got 6 superintendents in my district and the chair of Pub Ed, and we discussed issues that we're having. And some of the biggest issues that our superintendents are concerned about is one is teacher burnout, because you have teachers that not only are teaching in person, but they're also teaching virtual classes, and they're having trouble because we still don't have the connectivity that we need in this state everywhere. And it's harder to get students that are virtually learned engaged. If they don't want to click online, and come on board, you have a hard time controlling their learning. We've also hearing from them that the kids that are at school are doing well. The ones that are at home that are doing virtual for whatever reason, they or their parents may have chosen, are probably the ones that should be at school because they would do better at school. And so the virtual students are falling farther behind. And so we're going to have to provide more resources for our teachers. And in the meantime, we're continuing to monitor as down where you are in our area. We're seeing a little bit of a spike in the COVID, and in my assumption, some of it has to do with opening up more businesses that we've done in the last 3 weeks, and also, even more importantly, bringing the students back together for school. So hopefully this spike won't last a long time. We'll start to go back down. But it's something we've got to monitor before we bring all those students back in person to school. But we know that a student in class is going to 99% of the time do better than virtual.
Dr. Stucky, speaking of education, I take a moment of personal privilege here to always editorialize. I tell everybody that the O in my name does not stand for Orlando. It stands for opinion. So here goes. One of the things that I've noticed here in the state of Texas is that, we're a pretty conservative state. I don't care if you're talking about the African-American community, the Anglo community, the Hispanic community, the Asian community. We tend to be a little more conservative in Texas. But I'm always struck by how wacky liberal our higher education is, to the point that, as you know, they sanction young conservatives. They block conservatives from speaking at several campuses. Professors belittle our students that may offer an opinion on a paper that has a conservative bent that doesn't fit the narrative of the liberal college dean or the president of the university. And my question is, in Texas, why doesn't our leadership have a conversation with these members of the Board of Regents that are appointed by a conservative governor and say, listen, let's stop this nonsense. Let's let everyone have access and express their opinion, whether it's a liberal Democrat opinion or a conservative Republican opinion. But we taxpayers that fund these institutions of higher learning, and particularly through the natural resources underground in the state of Texas, we allow let them run roughshod over us. So that's my editorial opinion. I'm sure that doesn't require legislation, but it certainly is a burr in my saddle that these chancellors and presidents of universities sort of turn a blind eye to the conservative view. And I think that hurts us because, we see these wave of young people that, believe that, unfortunately, that, socialism is the way to go, that money has grown in Washington. And they don't realize that the money that funds both our counties and our state and the federal government comes from hardworking families in the state of Texas. We need to educate these kids on that concept.
Mr. Sanchez, you hit the nail on the head.
Would you repeat that so Andrea can hear that?
You hit the nail on the head.
It's just the haircut, doctor. It's just the haircut that, after he had a COVID-19 haircut, so now.
Well, I got my hair cut yesterday, so I thought you were talking about me at first. So.
Yeah, but you have hair to cut. I don't.
You all look great. I don't know. First of all, I'm going to talk from my viewpoint as not only Appropriations Article 3, but as Vice Chair of Higher Ed. I 100% see that when we were in committees. We see that. We need to correct that. I'm going to tell you that all three of our children are products of public education. All three of them went to Division I schools, and our daughter-in-law also, and all of them have degrees today. And my daughters and my son, my daughter-in-law, we would put them on university when we're polling, and they would get basically tarred and feathered by the other students. You're not, my daughter, who can be very vocal, would say, my dad, he takes care of Republicans and Democrats. I've been a veterinarian for 9,000 active clients. I don't ask them, what their affiliation is or whether they're rich or poor or what the color of their skin is or anything else. The only commonality is that they love animals, and so I get to see them. but they would say, well, nobody's a true conservative nobody's a true Democrat if they agree with your daddy. That's the attitude that they have there. They want everybody to be liberal, progressive Democrats. My administration of my schools in my area, I firmly believe, know they have a problem also and are trying to work on that. And I don't think it's so much the administration, it is the tenured professors that are too smart to even need God and have their own progressive ideas. And those people are the ones that are influencing the students. And then we see it even not so much in the freshman and sophomore, but I think as they get past sophomore, junior, senior in college, they've been influenced to think that everything that grows on trees and is free, and that they should get your share and mine too. And it is a real issue. It's a real problem, something that we need to get under control. So something that I would love to see you, Orlando, down at an interim committee hearing, both of you, this next session, if we're going to do it, and I sure hope we are. Yeah. And I hope I get back on the higher education committee. But that's an issue that needs to be discussed. And again, the other thing you said is it seems like they get the opportunity to make their stance as a liberal progressive, but when a conservative comes, they shut them down. I've tried very hard not to allow that to happen in my district at my universities. And I think we've moved in the right direction, but we need to make sure it's not happening anywhere.
Well, I appreciate the invitation. And, Paul Betancourt, your colleague on the other side of the Texas Capitol, usually invites me to appear before committees, and I'm always happy to pontificate before the committee and tell it the way it is. But I'm happy to do that because, frankly, Dr. Stucky, I'm not afraid of listening to both sides. As you know, here in Houston, we have several publicly funded radio stations and television stations. One of them in Houston is called KPFT. It's Pacifica Radio. Very, very liberal. But I can tell you that I do tune in. I do listen because I want to hear both sides. I came from a communist country where one side was always squelched. So it's important in a democracy like ours that everybody have access to the public square. And unfortunately, public universities in Texas are not fair. They want to posit an argument from one side, and I got to tell you, I'm tired of it. I think that our kids are getting a completely different lesson that they're learning from their parents at home when they get to the university. Let them hear both sides of the argument. What do these liberal professors and liberal presidents of universities have to fear? So that's my comment. We're out of time for you, Dr. Stucky, and we need you to get back out block walking and get reelected. So why don't you take another minute or two to ask our viewers what they can do to help you in your House district up in the Denton area.
And also talk to our Hispanic community.
Well, number one, you guys are awesome. I appreciate the conservative viewpoints that you have, and it's great to see that because it's encouraging, especially when, like you said, we watch some of this extreme liberalism on the other side. And going back to the professors, et cetera, having a tenure where you can't be kicked off is, to me, a ticket that's wrong because the university presidents or the board of regents, they can get in trouble for some of the things they say. But when you're a tenured professor and you can't be kicked off and you can say whatever you want, there needs to be accountability there. What can people do to help us? Well, we've got at least 10,000 more registered Republicans and conservatives here in our district that have not gone and voted yet. So, number one, make sure you have all voted and that you've got all your friends to get out and vote. There's so many new voters this time that it's very hard for us to know exactly where we are in the polls. And so just like every other race I've been in, I'm going to run hard and run across the finish line and give 110%. And basically, at that point, it's out of my control. It's up to the good Lord. So you guys can go to www.lynnstucky.com And if you want to help, if you want to make phone bank calls, if you want to come stand at the polls, our office for donations is P.O. Box 464, Denton, Texas 76202. We're going to be doing phone banking. We're going to be staying at the polls. It was raining today. I was out in the rain for a little while. I'm going to go back out. I think the rain's done for the day, and we're going to be okay. Tomorrow will be windy, but no rain, and Friday will be okay, and next Tuesday will be okay. So we'd love to have. We've got how many polls, Suzanne?
38.
We've got 38 polls in my district that we need people to stand at, because the sad part too is the fact that some people have no idea who their state representative is, and the only contact they may have is that person when they walk into the poll. And so we'd love to have you guys come out and help us in any way you can. And I know I've taken more of my time, so thank you very much.
Well, no,
You're fine.
we're delighted to have you, Dr. Stucky. We're honored that you took a few minutes of your very busy day encouraging your neighbors up in the Denton area to vote for you. We want to wish you the very best. I can predict that the sun will come out today, and I can predict that on November 4th the sun will come out and that you will be reelected, because Texas needs you. God bless you. Thank you for what you do. And I wish you all the success in the world.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you very much. I hope to see both of you at the Capitol next.
We'll come by.
Oh, yes, we will.
We'll come by and
All
say
right.
hi.
God bless.
Okay. Well, we're going to
Thank you very
move
much.
on, and I think we're going to leave the Denton area, and we're going to come back to Harris County in Houston, Texas. And so,
Yes.
Andrea, tell us who's up next.
Well, mi colombiano,
¿Cómo que tú
mi
colombiano?
colombiano y hondureño.
Ah, qué bueno.
Colombiano, hondureño, una combinación increíble. Luis Larrota, bienvenido a TLC Live. Colombiano de corazón, hondureño también.
Tú sabes que-
tiene el corazón partido.
Tú sabes que no solamente es guapísimo, pero también tiene una voz excelente como de radio. Porque cuando uno oye a Luis hablar es como
Claro.
oír a alguien en la
Pero
radio.
mira, tiene el look de televisión y la voz de radio.
Y es ex militar de las Fuerzas Armadas de los Estados Unidos. Así que ha contribuido cantidad.
De verdad. Luis, bienvenido a TLC
Louis, how are you,
Live.
buddy?
Welcome.
Gracias. Thanks, guys. Very warm introduction. Andrea, siempre un placer. Orlando, gracias por tenernos. Y siempre bien agradecidos con Texas Latino Conservatives. ¿Cómo están?
Well,
Muy
we're
bien.
good. We're good. Well, you know, we're over here laughing, Louis, because the temperature has dipped below 45 degrees, so that's big news in Harris County now. Everybody's very giddy because we've had our very first cool day of 2020.
I wish we could have started campaigning when it cooled down, because I remember when we started, it was about 90 plus degrees, and we're
Oh, I
walking
know.
around in black shirts.
It was
It was
crazy.
crazy. So,
Well,
this is a
Luis,
welcome.
you're running for a House District 148. So tell us a little bit about your district and why you're running for this position. And, you know, Harris County has been having a record number on early voting. More than 1 million people have voted. And we are around the corner for the end of the early voting. So we need to encourage people to go. It doesn't matter if it's raining. It doesn't matter if it's cold. We need to do that.
Yes, that's exactly right. And so, for those of you that don't know, House District 148 was held by Democrat progressive Jessica Farrar for 25 years. She championed abortion rights, and that's about all she ever did for our community. House District 148 is Harris County.
But Louis, let me interrupt, Louis. Not only did she support big abortion bills, contrary to how our community feels, but didn't she also try to sponsor important legislation about taxing men when they wanted to masturbate? I mean, that's really important in the state of Texas, right?
Yeah, that was a critical piece of legislation. If it
Yeah,
wasn't for Jessica
very
Farrar,
important.
I mean,
Very important. Thank you, Representative Farrar.
So that's our representative. And what's funny about what you said and what Dr. Stucky said is, I went around, I own a small business, and I talked to people in our community. Nobody knows who their state representative is. And as the chairman of the Republican Liberty Caucus, we would go to Austin to advocate on all our issues, limited government, free markets, personal responsibility. I never once got a meeting with Jessica Farrar. So that's the problem with career politicians. We have them here in Houston and in Austin. It's just a matter of how do we unseat these entrenched politicians. It's a difficult task, but I'm running because I'm effectively disgusted with the type of representation we get. As you know, Orlando and Andrea, they promise everything to us. They promise us better healthcare. They promise us better schools. They promise us lower crime. They promised us greater economic opportunity. But in reality, it's just a bag of false promises. And yet again, Jessica Farrar endorses Penny Shaw, who I was on a forum with last night. And I even confronted her about these Communist Party USA ties, asking her to clarify what's going on there. What's the affinity? She completely sidesteps the question. She has no regard for the community or for addressing our concerns. So I think electing people like Penny Shaw is just returning to the status quo. The Latino community has got to wake up. And during the special election, we had a very low turnout. That was a race we could have easily flipped early on. But, you know, we have so much work to do here, guys. And that's why it's important work that the PAC's doing, that we're out there engaging people, supporting the right candidates, getting the message out, because without that, the only media that's out there to Latino communities is the liberal media. And that's the biggest problem that I see.
Luis,
sad.
yeah, exactly. Very, very well said. Tell us about the issues that you're campaigning on in your district. What's important in your district? Because every district is different, right? We have House District 132, which is on the west side of Houston, Michael Schofield. We have House District 134, which is like the Texas Medical Center, Meyerland, Fondren Southwest area, represented by Sarah Davis. But 148 is a little different. So what are the issues that are important for the constituents in your district?
That's a great question. Thank you, Orlando. So our district is not monolithic at all. Even though it's 65% Latino, it covers the north side area, it covers the Heights, and it covers Spring Branch along the Hempstead 290 corridor. So we have three fairly different communities. So depending which community you go to, you're going to hear different issues kind of rise to the top of the questionnaire. But by and large, everyone agrees that healthcare costs are a top concern. I want to go to Austin to legislate and advocate for ideas such as allowing advanced practitioner registered nurses to be treating people over the counter, which would lower the cost of care dramatically, especially in light of the pandemic, and to also completely turn around what's going on with Medicaid, because as we all know, Medicaid is a ginormous tax on us. Every first dollar that we pay the taxes goes to Medicaid and federal funding for healthcare. But 40% of that is just pure waste. We lose $14 million a year in medical care that doesn't even end up coming to Texas. So we need to really fight back against this narrative. And that's what Democrats are pushing by far and large. Moving on, education is a massive issue here. Inside our district, we have Harris County Department of Public Education. We have Houston Independent School District and Spring Branch Independent School District. So these three organizations have three compelling and different stories, but as we all know, HISD is facing a lot of scrutiny from the Texas Education Agency. Coincidentally, I support a more Republican idea of decentralizing what's going on to allow these school districts to assume the responsibility, the accountability that goes with the funds that we're giving them. And maybe Dr. Stucky could weigh in on that if we get a chance to talk to him again. But I would be in favor of decentralizing schools, giving them more autonomy, but giving them more accountability as well. Now, lastly, go ahead, Orlando.
I was going to say, I've been pretty involved in the failure. Let me repeat that with a capital F, the failures of the Houston Independent School District. They've failed certain communities in Harris County and in Houston. They have failed the Hispanic community because of the high dropout rate of Hispanic kids that don't get an education. They have failed since the beginning of the pandemic. There was a report in the newspaper or on the television stations here about a week ago that they still can't get their technology right so that the kids that can't attend classes can learn through laptops and technology, and they can't get it together. I mean, it is an unmitigated disaster at the Houston Independent School District, and they run through billions of dollars of our property taxes. As you know, school district taxes are the highest taxes that we pay in the state of Texas. And unfortunately, the Houston Independent School District continues to be, from a leadership perspective, an utter failure.
Yes, and that's the challenges of education that this district has been facing for at least a quarter of a century. So whereas the state representative been on these issues or on any of the issues, and taking this a step further, I think the common root cause is systemic poverty. The left likes to talk about systemic racism, but they really talk about discrimination and try to aggrandize something that it's not. But systemic poverty is something they didn't want to talk about because they have absolutely no answer for how to overcome poverty. And I point to the example of Hong Kong. Hong Kong is a glaring case study of what can happen when you unleash a free market in a community that has virtually no resources. Hong Kong is a rock in the middle of a bay, and they were able to turn around in complete unprecedented fashion into a free market. You know, with the exception of what's happened recently with the Communist Party, they were the beacon of free markets. And here we are in Houston, energy capital of the world, with all this talent, all these diverse cultures, and yet House District 148 is lagging behind. So the Latino community here is the key to turning this race around, and we need their support. We need them to come out and vote against these leftist failed ideas. They know them very well. They know Penny very well. A lot of these people are not happy with her, and they weren't happy with Jessica. So I asked them to just stop voting Democrat because somebody tells you to vote. Hispanics, we're not a monolithic culture. We're not just going to vote because you tell us to do something. So I encourage people to do their research, to get behind the right candidates, and pay attention to where the money goes. Because Orlando, you know this very well. Where the money goes, politics, follows closely behind. And that's how I came to politics, because honesty is hard to come about, but you can't really lie about money the way it's spent.
Luis, you've been blog walking, and what is the feedback from the community? What is the biggest challenges, or what is the biggest concerns that the community is been asking you or is been addressing to you?
Right now, safety is probably the top issue. And in a few moments, I'm actually going to be going to the Houston Police Officers Union to express my support for them and their hard jobs, because the left is telling our districts and telling people across the nation that we need to defund the police, and that's going to somehow solve our problems. Well, all you have to do is turn on the TV and see what happens to cities that defund the police. Look at Austin. Their homicide rates have gone up. Everything that we want to see change and reform in police requires funding, requires them to be involved in the process. So when they talk about defunding and eliminating the police, the question should be, and replace them with what? So the left has been really kind of beating this down into my district, and people in my community, they support police officers, they support law and order, and that's the top issue that's really been getting a lot of attention in the Latino community. In other communities, you also hear quite a bit about public housing projects in the Heights. A very Democratic blue part of town that is in my district. They're upset because they're cramming public housing projects down their throat without their consent, something that Anna Eastman supported without consenting with the community. And now Penny Shaw, although she has vocally said that, she would have listened to the community, she didn't sign on to any petitions saying that these projects should be halted. So make no mistake about it. Democrats have an agenda. They're going to do what they want, and they're not afraid to railroad the community. And people in the Heights are going to figure that out very soon too.
Louis, I'm delighted you talked about crime, and so here I go with my editorial comment. I'll take a little leave from everybody. I had the honor, Louis, as you know, of being elected county treasurer for Harris County. So we actually had our finger on the checkbook of the people, and I oversaw that checkbook for more than a decade. And I can tell you, in those 12 years, Harris County was not perfect, but from a fiscal perspective, we were doing quite well. We had a balanced budget. We were paying down our debt. We didn't do any tax anticipation notes. And in 2018, as you all know, the blue wave hit Harris County, which is the third largest county in the state of Texas. The very first thing the Democrat-led Commissioner's Court does is try a massive tax increase on the property owners of Harris County. It was because two conservatives walked out of the room and broke the quorum that the liberal left in Harris County could not raise your property taxes. Yesterday, they, trying to push a public relations success story, decided to cut the property tax rate, not in Harris County, in the hospital district. In the hospital district, in the middle of a pandemic, they cut the property tax that goes to Harris Health, which is Ben Taub Hospital, and all of the county facilities. Can you imagine if a conservative would have cut the tax rate during a pandemic for our 2 public hospitals, which are LBJ and Ben Taub. And if that wasn't enough, everybody in Harris County that's watching the news knows that the very first thing the liberal left did in Harris County, in the name of reform in the criminal justice system, was to eliminate the bail system, which required defendants to show up to court. So now defendants aren't showing up to court. And guess what, Louis? The crime rate is spiking in Harris County. We have a 20% increase in homicides. We don't have enough police officers to deploy to areas that have a spike in crime. So every night we turn on the news, we see these random murders. And so on the one hand, they defund our sheriff and our police officers. They turn out criminals into the streets and into our neighborhoods. The crime rate is spiking. And by the way, this is another thing I say. The city of Houston, in its effort to reform criminal justice and police activities, now have a catch and release program. What does that mean? If a perpetrator of a crime commits a property crime less than $700, it's a ticket, Louis. It's a ticket. And here's the problem. A hardworking single mom goes to Costco and buys a laptop computer for their child. And they go to the grocery store, and unfortunately, when they get back, some perpetrator has stolen that laptop. That mom spent $650 on that laptop. The perpetrator took it to a pawn shop and sold it for $200. So the perpetrator makes $200. The pawn shop sells it for $400, right? So they've made $200. Guess who's screwed in this deal? The mom, $650. And because it was less than $700, there is no penal consequence. There's no way that they're going to pay back to society. That's what's happened when you elect the liberal left.
Absolutely, Orlando. And I mean, these are some of the bait and switch tactics that they've been using in these districts for years. And this is just a continuation of that. I hope that we can get Marian Ann Huffman in there, because we need a new district attorney. We need to reform our local leadership here in the city of Houston. And it starts with leadership, because all I see are political managers, people that have no courage, they have no innovation, they have no curiosity about what it takes to lift our communities from poverty and to realize that from poverty, that's what, we're seeing, the crime, the poor economic outlook. I mean, it's very obvious to an outsider that's not afraid to look at things objectively. But if we keep electing the same people, these are the results we're going to get. And I'm very sorry, guys. I have to leave right now.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to be late. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for your
Louis,
support,
thank you for what you're
endorsement.
doing. God bless you. I know that you've got the governor in town, and you're going to go hang out with the Houston Police Officers Union and the hardworking men and women of the Houston Police Department. So go out and get them. Keep working hard. We'll see you soon. Keep us updated to what's going on.
Mucha suerte, Luis. Nos vemos pronto.
But Andrea, let's talk a little bit about the
Let me tell you something. You were talking about like a mother, like this example, and that happened very often. You know who was victim of that recently? Marky Lee.
Oh yeah. Marky Lee, our entertainer during COVID, our great Tejano music entertainer.
He just posted yesterday on Facebook that he left his equipment and his instrument in his truck, and he got stole everything.
Yeah, folks. I mean, if you have $700 or less of property in your car, and one of the fined criminals that are being let out of the Harris County Jail, because we have to let them out on personal recognizance because they're such stand-up people and honest people that they're going to come back to court to be adjudicated. In Harris County, unfortunately, folks, in 2020, crime pays. I just gave you an example of a hard-working mother who might spend $690 at Costco on a laptop computer, and it's stolen, and the perpetrator will never pay. The only person that's paying the consequences of that crime is the child that's deprived of that laptop and the mother who has to work to go buy another laptop, because Harris County criminal justice system will never bring that person to justice.
And I remember when we interviewed Marian Ann for district attorney, and she was giving a perfect example of how the situation is so bad right now that a mother
No, it's bad and getting worse, Andrea.
that a mother tried to sell her daughter, a 2-year-old daughter. She put it on a bus, and she was with an undercover investigator. And the reason that she decided to do it here in Harris County is because she said, "Oh, in Harris County, nothing is going to happen to me. I'm just going to get away with that."
Yeah, I mean, the word's getting out. Nothing's going to happen. You can come perpetrate. And I tell you again, folks, in Harris County, I don't know about the other 254 counties in Texas, but in Harris County, if you talk to any police officer, any prosecutor, they're going to tell you crime does pay because they're not brought to justice. And it's absolutely horrible. You know, Louis made a lot of times, and I want to talk to our Latino community, porque muchas veces nosotros salimos a votar con emoción, por personalidades, y no pensamos qué es lo que estamos votando, right? We go vote on emotion
No nos informamos.
and on personalities, not on the issues. And so, yeah, you know, that's not how you vote. You don't vote on personalities and emotion. You vote on your pocketbook. You vote on things that affect your family, that affect your neighborhood. I mean, you know, I watched how they appointed our new Supreme Court Justice, Justice Barrett, right, the other day. And Facebook and social media is lit up with the liberal left saying, "Oh, the woman's never argued a case in an appellate court. She has no experience whatsoever." On the courts, she's been a judge at every level. She was a professor of law at one of the best law schools in the country. She is an extremely intelligent, articulate mom. For the first time, we have a mom of what, 9 children? 7 children on the Supreme Court? I mean, my God. And the liberal left is assaulting her. So they're claiming that Justice Barrett has no legal experience arguing appellate cases. Harris County elected a, 25-year-old leftist?
29
with no experience in anything? I mean, come on, folks. Let's be honest. Let's be intellectually honest. If we're going to have that conversation, let's put it on the line. Let's elect people not on emotion, not on personality, but on policies that are going to help our community. And that's what Texas Latino Conservatives does. We bring you the issues that are important. We want to educate you. We want to motivate you. We want to encourage you to run for public office in the future, right? We need those young faces like Luis LaRota.
We need
Like
representation.
Luisa del Rosal, like Orlando Sanchez, like all of the kids that have gone through our Latino leadership. Those are the leaders of Texas. And I tell you, I've made this prediction on social media, and I'll predict it again today because the election's coming up on Tuesday. Latinos, Tejanos in Texas are going to keep Texas red. Mark my word.
Yes, but we need to go and vote. Early voting ends on Friday. That's October the 30th. And they just announced that yesterday, today, and tomorrow, 122 polls at least here in Harris County. They're going to open till 10 at night. 10 at night. But some of them, they are open 24 hours. You know, because people were talking about the mail-in ballot because of COVID-19 and things like that. If everybody can go to the supermarket, everybody are going to work because now I'm seeing cars everywhere. The traffic is crazy. And you can go vote. You can go to vote, and especially that this is for the first time. It's not only 3 weeks on early voting, but also for the first time, the polls are open till 24 hours, some of them, and now 122 polls here in Harris County open till 10 at night. It's Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And then elections days is November 3rd, which is Tuesday, and it's going to be from 7 to 7. But let's not wait till that day. Let's do it in early voting because we don't know what can happen that day. Now it's cold, now it's raining, and we don't know how it's going to be the weather on Tuesday.
It's cold only for Texans. I'll remind you, it was minus 7 degrees in Montana yesterday.
Yeah, but you know what? You were already with this weather in Montana like when we were in summer here in Houston.
Yeah, the Rockies are really getting hit. But, Houston gets all excited when the weather's 40 degrees. So, yeah, it'll be beautiful sunshine this afternoon. Go vote this afternoon. Go vote tomorrow. Join us on our block walking, by the way. We have a crop of young Hispanics, young Latinos, young Tejanos that are helping us block walk to help elect these great candidates that are running for the Texas House of Representatives. Luis La Rota, Luisa del Rosal, a Mexican immigrant in the Dallas area. Michael Schofield out on west side of Houston. Lacey Hall over closer to 610 in the 290 corridor. Justin Ray here in Harris County. Justin Ray, Dr. Stucky, all of the candidates we've brought to you so you get to know the quality candidates that have a conservative position. And why is that important? Because the conservatives are hardworking people like all Tejanos in Texas. Nosotros trabajamos bien duro y ahorramos nuestro dinero.
Y que no nos regalen nada.
No nos regalen nada, pero tampoco queremos entregar nuestros dólares a un gobierno que va a repartir el dinero a personas que no están trabajando y no están contribuyendo. Ese es el error. Por eso ustedes no deben de votar con emoción y por personalidades.
Sino con la cabeza.
Tienen que votar con la cabeza. Aprendan, conozcan a los candidatos, vengan aquí una vez a la semana y aquí le vamos a presentar a todos los... Yo le aseguro que si ustedes nos ven por un año, 1 hora semanal, van a saber todo de la política en los Estados Unidos. Y no se olviden que también... we've gotten a little bit off course because we've been covering the election a lot and helping our candidates. But we need to get back to what we were originally doing.
Yeah.
It was bringing up issues that are important to the Latino community.
And
one of
experts
them,
on different issues.
yeah, one of them is immigration reform.
Oh, yeah.
Texas Latino Conservatives has a solution, a conservative solution for the immigration issue. We call it family stabilization. It's on our website. We talk a lot about it. But essentially it says the following, that if you're an undocumented alien with a family in the United States and you've never violated the penal code, we want an opportunity to allow these families to apply for a legal status, no pathway to citizenship. We can't grant you the most important parchment in the world, which is citizenship, because you jumped the fence, you jumped the line. And yes, we recognize that you've been here for 10 years, 7 years, 20 years, working, making a contribution. So we want to give you a permit that's renewable every 5 years. You pay for all of the costs associated with it, not our taxpayers. You won't have a pathway to citizenship, but you will be a recognized, documented resident of the state of Texas in the United States. So we need people to get behind that. There's a lot of conservative businessmen that are behind that plan. And after the election on November 4th, we're going to get back on talking about issues that are extremely important to the Latino community. And we can't talk about issues, Andrea, que son importantes para la comunidad latina si no hablamos sobre los 12 millones a 18 millones habitantes que están aquí indocumentados.
Yo creo que ya son 18, ya pasó por ahí.
Yeah.
Pero hablando de latinos, I want to say hi to Edgar Pacheco that he just tuned with us. And Edgar Pacheco is also running in Pearland for school board.
Position
number 2
at large in Pearland. Edgar Pacheco, whom you've seen, is a solid conservative. Unfortunately, here's what happened in Pearland. The conservatives, the Republican Party, put out a slate of conservatives, and they didn't put him down as ever having voted in a Republican primary. Well, why is that? He just turned 18,
Yeah, I know.
so he couldn't vote. But we can assure you that Edgar Pacheco is a solid conservative.
He just turned 19.
He's 19 years old now, almost ready to buy himself and enjoy an adult beverage in a couple of years, but he's running for school board, position 2 at large in Pearland. He's working the polls every day. Go by and say hello to him, and if you have a few minutes, volunteer for him. Hardworking young man. Edgar, we wish you the very best. So we're out of time. I hope that you'll comment and tell us if you like our studios. Don't forget to go to www.texaslatinoconservatives.com. And as always, she gets the last word.
Oh, ¿aprendiste?
Aprendí.
Después de tantos matrimonios aprendiste que las mujeres somos las que tenemos la última palabra.
Las que mandan.
Las que mandamos. Así que, bueno, nos vemos el próximo miércoles. Gracias por siempre estar con nosotros todos los miércoles aquí en TLC Live, aprendiendo e informándote de todo lo que está ocurriendo en términos de política, no solamente aquí en Harris County, pero también en el estado de Texas. Nos vemos el próximo miércoles aquí desde los estudios, el día después de las elecciones. Recuerda, noviembre 3 son las elecciones generales Y early voting termina octubre 30. Recuerda que hay 122 nuevos polls que están abiertos hasta las 10 de la noche. Nuevo horario, 10 de la noche, solamente ayer, hoy y mañana. Pero también puedes encontrarlo abierto las 24 horas del día. Hay 6 polls que están abiertos las 24 horas del día, así que no hay excusa para que salgas a votar y pues se parte de nuestra comunidad, de nuestra familia aquí en Texas Latino Conservatives. Ingresa a nuestra página de internet TexasLatinoConservatives.com. TexasLatinoConservatives.com.
Se le trabó la lengua a la locutora.
Ya, 1 hora. Necesito agua.
All right, guys. Well, God bless you. Go out and vote, and we'll see you guys next week, and we'll celebrate our common victory. Thank you.
Nos vemos el próximo miércoles.